Hi guys, welcome back to the RebelEngineer YouTube channel. In today's video, I'll be talking about Neuralink's recent successful implant on human subject and how that would impact future job market as well as human freedom. So first, let's discuss some of the pros of the Neuralink implant success. So what is Neuralink? Neuralink is a private American company, for-profit company that specializes in developing implantable brain-computer interface or BCI. The primary aim of Neuralink is to address various neurological disorders and conditions such as paralysis, neurological diseases. It also helps humans interact better with external devices through their brainwaves. The technology involves implanting electrodes or threads into the brain, which then can be used to monitor neural activities or stimulate neurons. So with all these features, Neuralink has lots of potential in the medical application field. It can help to cure a lot of diseases, especially neurological diseases. It can also help enhancing cognitive abilities in different people, and also it can unlock lots of potential for new jobs and new opportunities. Just like ChatGPT unlocks, lots of potential in the AI field and in other fields. For example, thanks to ChatGPT, nowadays we have one more profession called prompt engineering. And we also have AI trainers who essentially feed data into large language models or LLM to help training artificial intelligence. Neuralink devices will enable different types of jobs. For example, maintenance of the hardware, maintenance of the cell membranes, maintenance of the thread inside the chip, etc. People can also develop software and plugins for the Neuralink platform, which is very similar to how we develop software and apps for iOS and Android nowadays. We can all think of it as the next iPhone or the next Android, the next smartphone devices implanted into our brain with huge potential because it enables a huge amount of bandwidth to be passed between the brain and the devices, which is very different from the way you used iPhone or Android. You can only use your fingers to actually control these devices. But with Neuralink, you can actually control the devices around you with your brainwave. When controlling smart home or smartphone devices, you can only use 10 fingers maximum. But with Neuralink, you can use your brainwaves, so there's no limitation on the amount of bandwidth that you can use to control devices around you. It will allow massive parallelization to control external computer devices through the chip implant in your brain. And I also believe that Neuralink is also superior to all the ARs and VRs that we see nowadays in the market, like the Quest 3 or Apple Vision Pro. These devices were created at the aim of improving human and machine interaction. But I believe that Neuralink is basically on another level when compared to AR VR, and it will directly compete with AR VR and smartphones alike. Now, besides coming with all the benefits with regards to human-computer interaction, with regards to medical applications, with regards to curing neurological diseases, and also unlocking job potential, Neuralink also comes with lots of cons that concern lots of people around the world. One of the first and foremost concern that people have would be repairability and reliability. So when the chip is implanted into the brain, and let's say something goes wrong with the chip, then who's going to repair it, right? I mean, no machine is 100% reliable. If you look at like iPhones, Androids, most devices, electronic devices, there are no devices that are 100% reliable, and I believe that Neuralink is no different. When a Neuralink device is implanted into your brain, there's no guarantee that it will not break or it will not have some problems, and it will need to be maintained from time to time, just like any other electronic devices. So I would say that beside repairability and reliability, there's also health concern, not only at the very first step of implanting the chip into the brain, but also in the long term when you need to do maintenance on the chip. You would probably have to do additional mini surgeries from time to time to actually keep these chips going. Also, another thing I would like to note is if you look at many of the researches online, another thing that is also very important is human brain actually keeps growing even after you hit adult age. So even after age of 25, your brain keeps growing, and also when you get older, your brain will keep shrinking. So with the growing and shrinking of the brain, I'm not sure how Neuralink is going to deal with that, right? As human brains grow and shrink throughout our lives, there must be ways for Neuralink to actually keep their devices running correctly. And also they must find a way to repair the devices, update the devices, etc. And Also, the device will have to be able to adapt to humans' brains' growth and shrinks throughout our life. So especially when we get older, this type of surgery will become more and more risky. So the third concern I have for Neuralink and brain implant devices in general is privacy and security concerns. So as you know, our entire tech industry operates on collecting user data and training AI based on these data. So the tech industry is essentially all data. We're all data driven. And so I believe that Neuralink, if they want to survive as a company in the long run, because they are a for-profit company, and we are living in a capitalist country, so in order to survive in the long run, Neuralink will eventually have to involve with users' data somehow. Either it helps a third party collect user data and store it somewhere, or it will use the user data, maybe in an anonymous way, to help improving its devices and services. So I would say that privacy and security concern is probably one of the very big concern in terms of brain implants. I'm not sure if I would trust the tech industry and tech companies in general to store all of my data, like my thoughts, my feelings, into their massive data centers and sell those to advertisers. I'm not saying that Neuralink is gonna do that, but I would say Neuralink would open an era where there will be companies and different competitors that would compete with Neuralink, who will create devices that actually collect users' data. The basis of AI or artificial intelligence, the very thing that Neuralink devices or any other brain implant devices are trying to do, is to bridge the human brain with the artificial intelligence, right? So Elon Musk, I believe he said something like, if we cannot fight AI, then we maybe just merge with AI and become cyborg, right? But the thing about AI is the basis of AI is massive data collection and massive training of the AI using users' data. So, essentially we are connecting our human brains to this object called AI that must be trained using our own data or somebody else's data, right? So I'm not sure if that is actually a good idea to actually bridge our brains with something whose quality would be dependent on the data collected from us. If Neuralink wants to evolve and be profitable as a for-profit company, it would eventually have to involve user data somehow. And so the concern here is not just about collecting data, but like, what would the data be used for? Is it only limited to training this AI, and what will this AI be used for, right? So what will the data be used for, and what will the AI be used for? Those are my biggest concern when it comes to privacy and security. And the final point I would like to touch, and I believe this is the biggest concern of people when they see the successful implant of Neuralink on human subject, is the impacts on freedom, individual freedom, employee freedom, the impacts on general freedom around the world. So in my opinion, Neuralink would not only turn us into cyborg, but it will actually turn us into Optimus. What I mean by that is, if you think of the chip as the next iPhone that lives in your brain, and like if you look from a bigger picture, right, since the invent of smartphones and the web 2.0, have we had more freedom or have we had less freedom than ever, right? So we've been surveilled and trapped nowadays more than any other generations before us, I believe. So we all know that, massive surveillance has been on the rise for 1 or 2 decades now, thanks to the advancement in technology. We have all these smartphones and all these electronics devices always connected to one another, always online 24/7, and always feeding our data into some massive server farms that are then used to train other AI models. So I would say that we have had worse privacy and freedom violation for years now. And let's imagine that Neuralink would one day be as successful as an iPhone, maybe even more successful than the iPhone. And I'm not sure if I would actually trust Neuralink or any other brain implant companies with, my privacy and security. If we look at the track record of privacy and security protection of the tech industry in general, it has not been a very stellar record, We have the Cambridge Analytica scandal from Facebook. We have, many other violations, many other hacks at Google. We have many, and Google and Facebook are some of the best, most well-protected platform in the world. And we also have, Tesla camera hacks. We have a lot of, security breaches worldwide. So I'm not sure I would actually trust these companies with even more of my feelings and my thoughts and my data in their server farms hosted somewhere, in some other countries. And I'm also not sure if I would trust, the board of directors of any for-profit or even non-profit companies to do the right thing or the ethical things. So the thing is, maybe I would trust Elon Musk, with his, ethical and freedom of speech and freedom absolutist approach. But how about Neuralink's competitors, right? So my biggest concern is actually with the Neuralink's competitors. Many people online have been saying that they will not wear these devices, and these devices are strange, and what is the point wearing them? But the thing is, if brain implant devices are gonna boost productivity of human beings, lots of employers and lots of companies, I believe, will force employees, especially the 9 to 5 employees, to wear these devices inside their brain. And they will choose the devices that allow maximum control of the employee's thoughts and allow maximum tracking of the employee's productivity. So it will be like a massive surveillance effort and a massive data collection effort. And it may not be Neuralink that will be the leading implant devices. It will most likely be some other companies. It is similar to how smartphones like Huawei and Google Android that collect tons of data from people are actually more popular than the iPhones globally, but they surveil almost all of their users and collect massive amount of data to train their own AI and to sell those data to advertisers. So I believe it will be a very similar things when it comes to brain implant devices. Employers will go with the devices that are the cheapest and then probably allow maximum amount of control over their employees. Neuralink is likely the first to the market and it will have first mover advantage. But once Neuralink succeeds, all of these device manufacturer companies like Apple, Huawei, Xiaomi, Samsung, all of them will jump into the market and try to compete with Neuralink, just like ChatGPT competitors like Google Bard and Grok trying to compete with ChatGPT. So eventually, I believe that brain implant devices will have a huge ecosystem, massive markets that each of us will have multiple choices to choose from, and people who have less money to spare would have to choose or go with the vendors or the devices that are cheaper, but would have tons of ads, just like we go with Android nowadays, and then they will have to go with devices that are cheaper but collect their data. And then if the companies are forcing employees to wear these devices, they will consider that work equipment and they will hold the rights to all of the data collected by Neuralink or any other devices inside your brain. So they will claim ownership on all the feelings, all the thinkings, all the thought process that you have in your brain, because they said, oh, these brain implant devices are companies' devices. So we actually own all the data in there. At the end of the day, I believe that we live in a capitalist, market-based economies and society where companies are incentivized to maximize shareholders' values and companies' profit. So no matter how ethical Elon Musk and Neuralink and its board of directors are, there will always be devices manufacturers who prioritize profits over people's safety and privacy. There will always be companies that are willing to churn out cheap devices that collect users' data in a massive way, and then use this data, to sell to advertisers or maybe to train their own AI bot. Those living in our society who don't have enough means to acquire premium Neuralink devices will have to settle for cheaper devices from, other manufacturers that collect their data as a way to cut the cost of the devices. Just like, iPhone and Android phones nowadays. And I believe that this is one of the biggest cons of the brain implant technology. The main divide in this technology is not actually between the people who can afford it and who cannot afford it. The biggest divide in the brain implant technology is actually between people who can afford the more privacy focused and more premium version of the product compared to the ones who cannot afford the more privacy focused and less premium products. And maybe these products will collect users' data as a means to reduce their product prices. And to compete with these cheaper devices manufacturers, Neuralink will eventually have to find ways to make money, for example, collecting users' data, just like what other companies do, but maybe it will be in a more secure way. But eventually they will have to collect data, just like Apple. If you look at Apple iPhones, even though they block tracking and advertising of a Facebook app on the iPhone, Apple still collect users' data, just like any other fan companies, because they have no choice but to compete with these vendors. Even though Apple blocks Facebook and many other companies, app-based companies, from tracing users' data, but Apple still has to collect users' data somehow. And Apple still sells this data to advertisers, to app developers on their platforms to make money. Eventually, they have to compete and survive in the capitalist and in the free market economy. And that is what would happen if Neuralink finally succeeds. Even if Neuralink does not succeed, I believe that governments and companies around the world probably already see the potential of controlling people's thoughts and tracking people's thinkings and feelings. So they would definitely see this as an opportunity. And probably right now there are many other companies who are already entering the race to race with Neuralink brain implant technology. So I would say the battle to control and surveil people's brain already started around the world, not just between governments, but also between private entities, for-profit and non-profit companies alike. And as you see here, I just did a Google search and it says Neuralink faced stiff competition in the race to commercialize the first next-generation brain-computer interface. So yeah, it is competing with a company in Australia called Synchron. The race for controlling people's mind and the race to tracking and collecting people's data right from their brain, from the thoughts and from the thinking has already started. So with all this information and all these advancement in technologies, what can we do to protect ourselves, our families and our children against massive surveillance? So the thing is, many people online have said that, hey, maybe they can just avoid implanting these devices, or maybe they can have some sort of regulations. The government will step in and have regulations around the world around collecting users' data and preventing these devices from massive surveillance. But the thing is, first, you cannot really avoid implanting these devices. As I said before, if these devices are superior in improving people's productivity, employers will force their employees to wear these devices, just like they force employees to wear on the mask and take the vaccine in order to go to work. That's the first thing. If you are an entrepreneur or if you are freelancers, maybe you don't have to do all these. But if you work 9 to 5 jobs, like the vast majority of society, then you will be forced to wear these devices. And I believe many people would have to conform and wear these devices as a means to keep their 9 to 5 jobs, because these people have no choice. They cannot afford to lose their 9 to 5. That would mean they lose their health insurance, they lose their food. They cannot put food on the tables for their children. They will lose a home over their heads. So the vast majority of people will have to put up with these devices inside their brain. Also, even if you are an entrepreneur or if you are an independent freelancer, you have to understand that if you don't wear these devices, you may not be able to compete in the free and capitalist market. Other entrepreneurs and other freelancers will be much faster than you in their day-to-day productivity. And so you will most certainly be forced to use these devices just like you have to use smartphones nowadays. Also, the idea that we can rely on government's regulation as well as mercy from employers to protect our own privacy and data, and maybe rely on government's regulations to make sure that we're not being surveilled, it's just a joke, right? Also, a lot of people online say that maybe the WHO or some global entities or some government will step in and make sure that these devices actually respect users' privacy and data and won't massively collect data and massively surveil everyone on Earth. Like, that's a myth. The thing about this is governments have never been hesitant to use technologies to surveil their people. So you have to understand that the government does not have a responsibility to protect you. In most countries, the governments work for themselves and the government don't work for the people. Government regulations also usually lag behind technologies a lot. It is usually too late for them to pass regulations to control anything. And even if they do pass regulations for the people, it's likely that big corporations will find ways to lobby the government to change regulations in ways that benefit these corporations and help making them become monopolies. We all need to remember that we live in a capitalist and free market driven global society where money rules them all. So just an example, if you look at the way that US government is regulating social medias nowadays, you can see that the United States is really tackling down TikTok. Like, as you can see here, there was recently a Senate hearing on different social media companies. I think it was Facebook, Snapchat, TikTok, and also I believe it was Twitter, right? And you can clearly see here that these companies are all lobbying the government to actually bend the regulations into their ways. So I think there was a part of the video where the CEO of TikTok essentially told Ted Cruz that he actually, stored user data in Texas. And we all know that Mark Zuckerberg lobbies the government a lot to kick TikTok out of the country, right? You see, like, the government really puts a lot of pressure on TikTok because all these companies are trying to lobby the government to kick TikTok out of the countries, because TikTok is a huge threat to these companies' dominance. So these big companies, they will use money to bend regulations in their favor. So government regulations with regards to social media or any technologies, and even with Neuralink implant devices or all these brain implant devices, it won't be very effective, because these big companies, I'm not saying Neuralink, but I say like other big companies are competing with Neuralink. They will be lobbying the government to kick Neuralink out, or maybe they will be lobbying the government to allow, some ways to collect users' data so they can train the AI. And as I said before, the most important thing and the most precious thing in the technology world is not the coding, it's not the software engineering, it is data. Data is a new gold. Data is the most important thing in technology. Attention and data are the two most important things. And the valuations of all these big tech companies depend on how much users' data they have, not on their technology. Anyone can build a search engine, anyone can build the next Facebook, anyone can build a Twitter. But the thing that is valuable about these companies is the user data. So I believe that whether it is smartphones or whether it's social media, companies will fight tooth and nails to get their rights to own and collect all of their users' data. Society can change and technologies can move forward, but humans' traits will stay the same. I believe that the same things that are happening in the social media and the app store world will happen again in the brain implant world. That means that companies will try to use the governments to bend the regulations in their favor. Technologies may advance, but human natures of greed, fear, and thirst for power will stay the same. So these companies will do their best to lobby the government to ban regulations in their favors. So the only person who you can probably rely on to fight against this massive surveillance effort is probably yourself. It looks to me that the brain implant technology will eventually succeed, and this will lead to massive surveillance, massive mandates for people around the world to wear these devices to work. And that's why I have always stressed the importance of chasing freedom, of breaking free from your 9-to-5 jobs, either by using side hustle, side gigs, or by having passive income. It's very important that you can break free. That's why I named this channel RebelEngineer. I have always stressed the importance of breaking free from your 9-to-5 jobs, having side hustles, having passive income, so that you are not beholden to your employers for health insurance, for your freedom of location, etc. But maybe we will not be able to escape this technology after all, right? Just like we cannot escape from using a smartphone. I mean, if these devices are gonna improve people's productivity, even if you are an entrepreneur or if you are a freelancer, you cannot really escape from using these devices, because otherwise you will not be able to compete in the capitalist and free market driven economy. So maybe investing and having passive income is a final answer after all. Even if you cannot escape wearing these devices after all, at least with additional income, extra side income, and at least with additional wealth, you can choose what to wear, what kind of devices to wear, what kind of devices to buy. Even if we cannot escape from wearing these devices day to day, at least if you're an entrepreneur or if you are a freelancer, you can actually say no, or maybe you can actually wear these devices without being beholden to your employers. Because I think if employers are the ones who mandate these devices, and if they require you to wear their own devices that they purchase, they will be able to own and collect and own and do whatever they need to all your data. So at least if you are a freelancer or if you are an entrepreneur, you can at least somehow partially own this data, and also you have the means to choose some more freedom and privacy focused devices instead of having to settle for the cheaper ones that collect data on a massive scale. And that will do it for me. Please let me know what are your thoughts on these brain implant devices down in the comment section below. Thank you for listening. See you in the next one. Bye bye.